I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, every now and then a book comes along that's much, much more than a novel. It reads like a novel, but it also connects to real life. It's a book that'll help you become a better person, that'll help you make the lives around you better, and in turn, make the world a better place. That is the case with the book we're about to discuss right now on Spotlight. It is called Secrets Within the Soul. It is written by Toni Jackson, and it is a journey told through a number of characters who have real life experiences and real ways out, thanks to the author, who is also a social worker. Her name is Toni Jackson, and I'm delighted to have her right now on Spotlight. Toni, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Logan. I really appreciate it. And this means a lot because I realize there's a lot that needs to be spoken about. And I'm willing to be the blowhorn for these issues within the book.
Absolutely. They are important, pressing issues. Let's tell the audience briefly what the book is all about.
So basically, the topics that are most prevalent within the book would be date rape and sex trafficking.
Two very, very pressing issues that affect people across America and beyond here in 2022. Let's get to the first one, date rape. How do you address it in your book? And what are the lessons that the viewers need to know?
So from the root of it, most times it stems from not in childhood when children are growing up. Lots of households don't have two-parent households, and they tend to look for love. And looking for love, they fall into traps, whether it be male or female. And before they know it, they see themselves in an ongoing situation where they're being taken advantage of. They may not even see it for what it is at the time, but if your body is being used for the purpose of the next one to have pleasure, that is something that is not right, especially if it's something you don't want. If you're crying out no and the person is forcing it on you, that's no.
Right.
No is no. And if it's not something you want, you shouldn't have to go through it, because then you are now with a road ahead of you with possibly some mental health issues because of the trauma that you faced. You may have to replay that thing over and over in your mind. There are a lot of issues that come after a trauma such as date rape.
Absolutely. And like you said, people have a need in their life. They need to feel connected. They need to feel loved. They're not getting that at home. They're not getting that from their family. So unfortunately, people tend to latch on to sometimes inappropriate people, a person who doesn't respect them, a person who doesn't treat them right, a person who exploits them, and in some cases, even a gang.
Yes, this is true. And that's the most traumatic. All of it is traumatic, but just I don't think any of us can really fathom the trauma that comes after a gang rape.
Awful, awful. What are the resources available to a person who finds him or herself in this situation where they're being abused or being exploited and they don't see a way out?
So you have counseling that can take place. You have Women Against War. They have mental health counseling if you find yourself going through some really odd things within your mind. You may go through some traumas of depression. You may go through bipolar disorder. You may be manic depressive. There are a lot of counseling that takes place. You can find areas within your city. You can Google it. You can look for counseling for depression or issues that happen after date rape. There are many resources you can look for by just Googling it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're lucky to live in an age where help can be somewhat accessible, but unfortunately, a lot of people find themselves kind of trapped They feel that this is the only person that they connect with, that the person who is exploiting them promises to be different or to treat them differently in the future, that it won't happen again. We hear about the abuse excuse a lot, but it's very true, right?
Yes, it is. And that's the unfortunate part. Once you think you cannot get out of a situation like that, that person sees they have the power over you. And once they feel like they have the power over you, then their minds can roam into other areas of control. And the
Absolutely.
only thing you can do is make it within yourself, a decision within yourself, where you're saying to yourself, how can I get out of this? And sometimes it can be dangerous. It can cost you your life. It may have caused you to get into prostitution because of the control that person has over you. This is not just for women. This could be males because our society has now changed.
Mm.
So males can be taken advantage of too. So you have to not keep a closed mind and know that this is for young women, young ladies, and sometimes women. And the same for young boys, teenage boys, and young men, depending on what their lifestyle was growing up. I heard a saying on one time where in life, in our young lives, we could have been dropped. What does that mean? Because someone didn't take the time out once they opened their mouths or they made an action towards you in which it caused you to not feel loved. And once that is not corrected by patching it up with you, it leads that person into a direction where they're searching for the love that they want because we're all human
Mm.
and we want to be loved.
It's
And that's
it,
just the reality of it.
yeah, it seems like the answer really is to prevent it before it starts, is to intervene in families that are dysfunctional if that's possible, right?
Yes, it would be really helpful if there are things that can within different communities, maybe the community centers, recreation centers. I know back early in the 70s, they had recreation centers where the children can go to. They had different classes and things, people they can talk to, counselors in school. The schools are so full now, you may not even be able to get a chance to talk to a school counselor. There are so many different avenues that you can take and go into to try to get the help. You may have a neighbor that you can talk to, someone that you know you can trust. It's not about a gossip. You don't
Mm.
need anyone that's going to gossip. You need
Mm.
someone that's going to try to help you.
Absolutely. Do you feel the fundamental problem is that the family is broken? We hear a lot about fathers who don't stick around and mothers who are overwhelmed trying to raise children and earn a living. I mean, particularly in these times, I mean, things are so expensive that people to pay the rent and to keep food on the table are working two or three jobs and, don't have time to intervene and monitor their children like they should be.
This is correct. The other thing would be it also could come from the way individuals talk to children. If you're
Mhm.
talking about a child growing up, negative thoughts towards a child. Oh, you're just like your father. Oh, you're just like your mother. A child can perceive that as not being loved. And if it's an ongoing thing, it could push them in the wrong direction, looking for love.
Absolutely. I mean, kids get caught up in the divorce wars without a doubt that one spouse is mad at the other spouse. So each spouse takes their turn disparaging the other spouse in front of the children or to the
It's
children,
correct.
purposely trying to undermine and alienate regardless of the cost on the child.
Yeah, and also without thinking about what's coming out of their mouths in front of the children.
Right. It's awful. Tell me about the other part of the equation that you addressed in the book. You talk about sex trafficking. How
Yes.
big of an issue? I mean, we hear about it on TV, on the news. I guess it was called prostitution more a few years ago, but now the umbrella term sex trafficking seems to encompass everything. How big a problem is it, and what do you see as the cause of it?
The last time I researched it, which was maybe a week or two ago, according to Google, it's upwards here in the United States, approximately 50,000 young children and women. And they're stating that it is not necessarily a proper number because it's something that's hard to track.
Yeah, yeah. Is it mostly migrants, or is it often migrants?
No, it can also be those from the affluent families. Uh, it could be mostly from migrants. And if we're speaking worldwide, you have countries who they may turn their face to a child being sold over to someone that is willing to pay the family for the money that they may need at the time because of their lack of finance. And
Mhm.
then that child ends up in sex trafficking. And then they never see their families again.
And then they also are exploited by professionals at this point. We talked about people who might emotionally abuse somebody in a relationship, but once it gets down to the structure of sex trafficking, then you've really got a very, very frightening prospect for someone who's ensnared in it.
This is correct. Um, you know, we've seen things on TV as far as movies and things, and the way it is depicted, most times it may be the affluent gentleman who wants a young, as they say, quote unquote, fresh young lady
Mhm.
where she hasn't been touched, and they want to continue to have that relationship with her against her will. It's unfortunate, but this is what we've been shown so far with the idea of sex trafficking. And then that child, whoever it may be, and there are many, they are offered to many men, or the young men may be offered to many men or young women, or young, I'm sorry, many women in this trafficking. You never know which way it goes. And it could be the same thing for a young woman because of the way our society is. It's that they're doing it and having it done against them, against their will.
Do you
And
think
it's
it's
traumatic.
worse now than it used to be? I mean, we hear more about it now. Is the problem more pervasive?
I believe now it's catching on to where, okay, we need to start trying to do something about this. And the times that I had to work with individuals, oftentimes they were runaways, and you try to get them the help that they need. But if they're still in those stages in which they are connected and feel like they need to go in that route because their minds have been set that way, they continue to run back, run back, run back, because this is the source that they know. They don't have another source. So now it is known more so, and this is one of the reasons why they have a runaway hotline. With having that runaway hotline, the idea is to try to help that individual that had run away, but it's up to that individual to start getting the help that they need. But oftentimes, because it's the beginning stages or the infantile stages of getting the help that they need, they may revert and go back. So it's going to take a few minutes or a few times for them to get it for a lot of people. But now they're talking about it. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it too, because I want to be a blowhorn.
Mm,
I want to be that bullhorn that's blowing it. Get it
right.
into communities, get it into recreation centers, get it into schools, get it into auditoriums in the schools where they have auditorium occasions where they have professionals come and talk to these young people so they'll know what it looks like, because many times they don't know what it looks like. They
Right.
need to be aware so they don't get caught up. And once they learn from the ones that don't know, then tell them too, so everyone can be on the same page, that everyone can know what this looks like, because it's cunning, it's sneaky, is done in a manner. You could be at a, I've seen things where the child can be at a party and oh, come on, let's go have a smoke. Because you know,
Mm,
young people want to smoke these days. They call it smoke.
mhm.
That may be the luring to take them away, and they may not ever be seen again. So we have to make it known, get it out there more so. All types of programs need to be created within different communities so the children and young adults will not be ignorant and they won't get caught up. And hopefully one day this issue will no longer be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the goal. That is the quest for a lot of people. Tell me about your book, Secrets Within the Soul. Tell me about that title. What did you mean to inform the viewer or the listener or the reader by writing that? What are the secrets within the soul?
We as individual people, we all have gone through something, and we'll be around people. We can put our faces on and look nice and laugh and hee hee ha ha, but there's always something within a person
Mhm.
that the next person doesn't know anything about. And this issue in this book is a date rape and the sex trafficking. Many individuals we could be around, they may have gone through the sex trafficking and gotten out of it, but do you know it? Because it's something that someone may not be willing to share. So that's the secret within the soul, within that person that they have not shared. And they may still need the counseling in order to be completely freed from their situation.
Absolutely. Tell me what it was like writing this book.
It was freeing, and I say freeing because the excitement behind knowing that I can help individuals. One of my mottos is if someone is falling short somewhere, and if there's something that I could do to help, I want to share that with them. Because lots of times children grow up with, like I said earlier, and they may not have that counseling or that encouragement to guide them in the way that they need to go in. So for me, in writing this, the whole goal behind it is helping the individual that may need the help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think you have achieved that for the people that get to read this book. It's very, very important. Tell me a little bit about your work as a social worker. I'm sure obviously that informed this work, but what's that like? What's your routine like? Where are you based? Who are the people that you generally see?
Well, at this particular time, I guess you can call me quote unquote retired.
Mhm.
As a social worker for over the 10 years, working with children between the ages of infants or birth
Mhm.
to 18 or 21 if they were extended within the foster care system. I work with them on many occasions. Um, they had to be removed from homes. Once they were removed from homes, it was because of the circumstances. They were beyond what a child should live in. They were not livable in a lot of times,
Mhm.
or the abuse was such that they could not stay there any longer. So the city had to step in um, as someone that would place them in homes that would allow them to be safe, foster care homes. So, and there's a lots of times that children, once they get to be teenagers, they may find a young person that they can love. And this is where sometimes you would see some runaways.
Mhm.
And trying to get them back sometimes was really some hard work. You would do your part, but it didn't mean that they were going to remain where you placed them.
It's
And this
so
often,
difficult to do what you're doing because you're dealing with a child who doesn't have the intellect or the perspective to realize that you're trying to help them. They love their mother or father or aunt or grandmother or whomever they're with and don't want to be removed from that setting, even if they are being abused. And then these children also tend not to do well in school. So then their, intellectual development is halted as well. So it really is a vicious cycle and very, very difficult to deal with.
yes. And this is why I want it to get out there even more so, because the professionals that work more so in the counseling and maybe government officials, maybe they can create programs where these young adults or young children can see that they can go to and not have something hanging over their heads like they did something wrong. They need to know that, okay, we're all human and we may make the wrong choices, but okay, I can go there because they're going to help me.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody needs a safe place. It's great when it's your mother and father. If it's not your mother and father, it's nice that it's an aunt or an uncle or a grandma. But if it can't be that, it's good that if it's a boys' club or girls' club, like you said, there needs to be some kind of community involved in the children's lives, particularly in areas where people don't have financial sources, where they're stretched thin, where they're tired, where, the society isn't supporting the family. I mean, that's a big part of it. It's very, very difficult. And I can tell you, I was a divorced father. It's very, very difficult for men to stay involved in a child's life, even if he or she wants to, even if he wants to be, because of vengeful parents and so forth.
Yes, this is true because oftentimes parents can take it out on the children. Well, they take it out on the father, so to speak,
Right.
from the woman, and no, you can't go over there. And they play this game of, oh no, you can't have them this weekend. Oh, you can have them
Exactly.
this weekend. But meanwhile, that child is in the center of all that, and they're not seeing the trauma that they're creating for that child.
Yeah, it's a very, very destructive situation. I've seen it firsthand, unfortunately. The name of the book is called Secrets Within the Soul. And as Toni Jackson just eloquently explained, we all have secrets within our soul, even if everything looks like it's perfect on the surface. Sometimes, if you scratch that surface just a little bit, you'll find out that it is not. She deals with very real situations today that are very pervasive, that are on the borderline of being crises. They are date rape, they are sex trafficking, and they are the general abuse and neglect of children and young adults. The book is highly recommended. It is great for anyone who loves a child, which should be just about everyone. Toni Jackson, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
And to the
I
folks at
appreciate
home,
it.
I appreciate you spending the time with us to inform us as you have. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.